I first played Gauntlet 4 in my late teens, 20s, after my brother brought it home along with a Mega Drive console from the game store where he'd been working. The reason we were so keen to play it was that it retained the classic Gauntlet gameplay, top-down multiplayer dungeon crawling. But it added a quest mode, a battle arena, and eschewed some of the frankly mistaken improvements, so-called, of Gauntlet games in the previous years. Between Gauntlet 2 and Gauntlet 4 there had been a number of attempts to update the classic 4 consoles. For a comprehensive breakdown of the history of Gauntlet, I'd recommend PatmanQC's video, linked here and in the description. In my opinion, these games sacrifice too much of what made the original great. Certain games come out of the gate just feeling complete, they don't need anything added to them. I would put Asteroids or even the original Pong, antiquated as that might seem, in this category because they are so pure, they just feel right to play. You can innovate certainly, but quickly these new variations on a theme, they stop being that original. Take chess for instance, you could come up with an armor rating for all the pieces and use dice rolls to see if they hit, but at that point you're no longer playing chess, you're playing Warhammer. Gauntlet 4 made the correct decision, I believe, in 1993 to retain that classic Gauntlet gameplay, but added several things that Gauntlet fans had been yearning for: a proper story, character progression, quest mode, in addition to doing a fantastic job with the port itself of the original arcade cabinets, graphics and sound. This Mega Drive release also upped the ante with an incredible score by Hitoshi Sakamoto of Final Fantasy and Breath of Fire fame, and to this day it's one of those retro soundtracks that I return to, the tracks Adventures of Iron and Sortie being particular favourites of mine. I have no qualms about turning off a classic game after 5 minutes if it doesn't grip me, it doesn't live up in the modern day. No matter how many fond memories I might have of it, I can be objective in that way. Even the recent Shredder's Revenge, not a past game but one inspired very much by the original TMNT side-scrolling arcade game, it failed to hold my attention for long because, in my opinion, although it's hectic fun, the gameplay of that game and the original arcade, it's just too simple to hold a modern gamer's attention for very long. Gauntlet 4 truly is a game that is still worth playing, I think. The various towers of the quest mode take some actual puzzling and lateral thinking to figure out, with backtracking between the various floors being required before you find the correct path. I found myself making decisions all the time. Should I run into that monster room and take a few hits in order to remove the generator as quickly as I can, or hang back and snipe from afar? Often doing the latter leads to you taking more damage, although it may seem safer, because things will be firing at you. Particularly if it's a room full of demons, you will definitely take several fireballs to the face as you try to snipe the generator. But you can't spend too much time agonizing either. Just like the arcade, your health is constantly ticking down, and there isn't enough food on each level for you to break even by the end. The appeal of that quest mode in Gauntlet 4, which is the innovation and truly its best feature, is that it gives you ways to tackle the fundamental unfairness of some of the original Gauntlet. There are shopkeepers to be found who can sell you health drinks and you can upgrade your hero. The differences between the 4 characters being finally delineated through a total of 6 unique stats. Very appropriate, in fact, because the original Gauntlet was heavily inspired by role-playing games like D&D. You can even buy expensive items such as the health ring that stop your health draining away, which sounds like a cheat, but there are checks and balances in place. You can't have more than one item active at any given time, for instance, and there's a cap on how good certain characters can become. The elf's shots will never be more powerful than the barbarians ultimately, assuming they level up at the same speed, because the elf's shots will cap at a certain point, whereas the barbarian can keep upgrading his. I was genuinely surprised by just how much puzzling I had to do to progress. It reminded me of playing something like The Witness, in fact, a game that is all about problem solving. But Gauntlet is primarily an action game. I'd forgotten just how good Gauntlet 4's level design is. As mentioned, it is also a challenge. There is definite skill involved, strategy required as you assess risks, learn the quirks of the various enemies, as well as a different approach depending upon which character you happen to be playing. It's rarely a good idea to use melee in any circumstance with the wizard, for instance, leaning instead on his rapid fire fireballs. The barbarian, on the other hand, he's a beast close up, and it's often better to run in with him rather than try and dodge around because he's incredibly slow. The game's bosses are far from a walkover as well. Each fight essentially boils down to a bullet hell with a particular dragon, and this is tricky in itself, but each tower has a unique tile associated with it. So the water tower has these slippery tiles, the air tower has this infuriating stream tile that blows you around constantly. So you can imagine that bullet hell fight with the dragon is difficult enough, but you're also being buffeted by gusts of wind while you're trying to target the thing's head. I've made a pact with myself when it comes to retro games, covering them on this channel. That is, I won't play anything that I don't think it's still worth playing beyond the nostalgic feels. It's got to have something beyond that and still be worth playing for a modern gamer. I really didn't expect Gauntlet 4 to be one of those games. I was just playing it for my own amusement, really. Didn't think it would stand up. But on the contrary, if you like puzzling, the game's quest mode is extremely well designed. If you enjoy a challenge, it has that. If you like a simple but nuanced gameplay that takes skill to master, it's got you covered there too. Gauntlet 4 is a game that doesn't get enough credit for just how good it is. I think probably because it's the fourth in a series and it came out on console, not in the arcades. But the decision the developers made to retain the original's gameplay but embellish with the addition of a brilliant score, an engaging story, was the correct one to make. I mean, it's not Shakespeare, it's quite simplistic story, although there is a really good twist at the end, particularly if you play in co-op, although I'm not going to say any more than that or I'll spoil it. But I mean, I spent as much time trying to beat that air dragon that I mentioned with the tricky stream tiles as I did trying to beat Sasquatch in Cyberpunk 2077 recently, so that's got to be an endorsement. I didn't give up. I didn't think this is pointless because it's an old game. I thought, I'm going to beat this dragon. So if you're interested in playing Gauntlet 4, I can definitely recommend it, whether you're returning to it or you're playing for the first time. I've linked to my video on how to use RetroArch, which is a all-in-one solution for retro gaming. It's what I use. So click on that and have fun. I've been Napyet, and I'll see you next time.